Hello, my name is Michael O'Keefe, aka The Movie Wist. If you enjoy this interview and want to hear more top-notch film industry conversations, please press the thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell to stay in the know. Hello, Gregory Monro. There have been other documentaries
Hello.
about. Hello. So there have been other documentaries about Stanley Kubrick. So tell me what is different about yours.
Well, you're absolutely true about that, and I thought about it really a long time before doing that film because I didn't want it to do the same kind of documentaries on Stanley Kubrick. Meaning, a lot of people saw his films, of course, and read on him, read his words or the words of others, analysis and everything. So people were really immersed in the Kubrick's atmosphere and era and everything. And so I really said to myself, okay, if I am to do something on Stanley Kubrick, which I really appreciate, I really want to do something different. So the only option, the only thing that hasn't been done before was a film in which you could actually hear Stanley Kubrick because of course he related into to and so he granted interviews to Michel Simon, which is a great film critic. Sorry, I was looking for that word before, film critic, and Michel Simon actually really had a long ship with Stanley Kubrick, a friendly relationship, and they met about 4 or 5 times, and he made 4 interviews with Kubrick, and Kubrick was really he was really confident in Michel Simon, possibly because Simon was in France and and Kubrick really appreciated France, having an eye on his films and analyzing his films and being kind of a different viewpoint on his cinema. And so from there on, Michel Simon recorded. He tape recorded the interviews, but these weren't intended to be uh, heard. I would say they were intended to be transcribed to a book, which, the matter of fact, he did, because there's a famous book called Kubrick by Michel Simon, and very famous book. And these interviews in that book, I mean, you have part of the transcription of the audio tapes. And so my idea was really to try and make a film, not trying to tell people, okay, you're going to learn new stuff. It's an adaptation of Kubrick, of Michel Simon's book, upon the Kubrick interviews. So it's very important to have that in mind. It's a film which I really wanted to add, I would say, the human side of Stanley Kubrick, try to humanize Stanley Kubrick through his voice, through his words. That was really the goal, much more than to learn something more, because of course all the fans and people who knew Kubrick, yeah, I mean, it's not the goal of that film. The goal of that film is to add that face of Stanley Kubrick, meaning that heart of Stanley Kubrick, the brain of Stanley Kubrick, his thoughts, his deep thoughts. So that was really the objective.
Very nice. Tell me about how you got introduced to Stanley Kubrick. What were the formative films by him that maybe sort of changed your perspective on the world and cinema?
Oh my God. Well, the first Stanley Kubrick film I discovered was Barry Lyndon. It
Oh,
wasn't at that time. It wasn't at that time because I was born in '75, so
yeah,
I was born that year.
yeah,
So no, I saw it, but I saw it very early on. I think I was 10, 10 or 11 years old when I saw Barry Lyndon. That was my first Kubrick experience, and my God, I mean, I was amazed. As a young boy, I was amazed by. Of course, I didn't get it all, but I really was in the movie. I wasn't bored at all, and I really appreciated the cinematography, the image, lightning. That was like magic to me, and uh, and also I think that's one of my most incredible and painful experience in seeing, uh, as a young kid myself, seeing a young kid dying in a movie. That scene where when Barry's son dies is really traumatized me. Really, really. Until today, when each time I see it, it remembers me.
Yeah.
That time when I was 10 or 11 years old, I was discovering that because I couldn't understand that a kid could die actually in the movie, and that people could show kids dying in the movie, and it really, I was shocked by that sequence, that very moving and great, 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 great sequence. But I kept it with me, and I wanted to know more about Kubrick and cinema. Just a few years later, I mean, I think the second one I saw was 2001.
Hmm.
Probably I was 13 years old, and again, that was, I mean, so I don't have to explain what you feel. But when you're very young and you discover Kubrick, I think it's rather different, because even today I wouldn't show Kubrick's films to my kids. They are very young. They are like 11 and a half and 11 and 14. But I think you have to be mature enough to get it. And another thing is that I think you're never mature enough. I think that Kubrick, he has that exception, I would say, in cinema, probably with other directors, of course. But speaking of Kubrick, uh, I think if you watch all his films, like the 13th he's done every 10 years in your life, I bet that you won't see it. Each time would be a new experience. Each time you would see and understand something else, something more. This is very powerful, and I think that that's Kubrick's print, I would say.
Do you have a personal favorite?
Yes. Well, I have two two or three personal favorites. So do I have to only
You can tell me
say
two or
one?
three. You can tell me three.
To Well, Barry Lyndon. I think Barry Lyndon is really the first one, but it's also because of my experience in discovering it. So I would say, of course, Barry Lyndon,
Mhm.
and 2001. Uh, I like The Shining a lot too. But when I was in my teenage, I was like every teenager. I wanted to see shocking things and blood and everything. So I discovered that at that time. So I had that memories of it. And I like Eyes Wide Shut a lot. I think I learned to. I like a lot of people. I guess at the time, people were a bit disappointed because, and for a stupid reason, because unfortunately Kubrick passed away at that time, and people, or some critics just said, "Oh, for a last film, he could have done better." I say,
Mm.
"Excuse me, he didn't know it was his last film." So don't. So it's a stupid comment, but nevertheless, I appreciate a lot Eyes Wide Shut. I think it's a great film. It's one of the biggest Kubricks, really, really. It's he made so different films. I mean, they're all different, so it's difficult to make a choice. It really, again, I think it's very personal, but I think it has something to do with your life, the period of your life you are watching a Kubrick film, because you always remember. At least you remember the very first time, and I bet you do, the very first time that you discovered one of Kubrick's film.
Yeah, for me it was a Clockwork Orange,
Oh my God!
and I was like in grade 8, right? So I was, I don't know, like 13 years old, and so
Oh my God!
there was a
Oh,
scary possibility of what the next few years of my life might have had in stores had I got a different route. And I don't think I made it through. It was so intense, but that was the first major formative Kubrick experience for me.
yeah. Oh yeah. My God! Clockwork Orange. Oh, that wasn't an easy one. Oh, and it's weird because Clockwork Orange is so actual. I mean, when
Right.
you watch it today, it's terrible. When you watch it today, and what's happening in the world, what's happening in France, for example. We have Clockwork Orange almost every week in France. Really, I'm not joking about that. This is awful. This is traumatizing. Really, it's and when you listen to Kubrick's words, I used his interview for Clockwork Orange in my documentary, and he talks about violence, you know, and he says, how are you going to eradicate violence? Are you going to use violence against violence? I mean, that's today. It's difficult because it's not funny, but there you see that Kubrick was a genius. He was. I don't like the word of genius or visionary, but I think that he was very ahead of his time, and I think that he was very well aware of the world in which he was living. And I, you know, it, not all the directors have that viewpoint on, I would say, humanity. I would say.
Do you have a favorite book that he selected to adapt?
I really don't know because I haven't read them all. So I only talk about the ones that I read. And the reading was difficult.
Yeah.
I read, yeah, no, really, it was difficult. So it's a difficult question. I haven't read them all. Really,
Yeah.
it's he adapted.
How many have you read?
Well, I read Shining. I read Berliner. I read Lolita. I read the German. It's what's not called that White Shot. It's called
Trop novel.
Very a Trump novel. Very very. And by the way, that one is amazing.
Yeah.
That one is amazing. It's very short, but it's amazing. It's like a dream. I think I really like that one. You see, because you I think that you see you kind of appreciate more, I think, Kubrick's adaptation when you read the book and you understand what he wanted really to do, and that he was really I think you didn't that film is like it's like a daydream.
Yeah.
It's like a daydream. It's like daydreaming, and if you haven't read the book, I think you don't get it. And that's where you see that Kubrick was incredible when adapting a book. He really chose the most powerful story for him, of course, and he tried to be. Sometimes he tried to do differently, like everybody knows The Shining and everything, blah blah blah. But with trauma novel, it helps. I think it helps to understand the movie more than the other adaptation, probably. Lolita was I read it a long time ago. So, and Lolita is a difficult book to understand. I think I was too young. There's too much problems to take with that subject. So it's difficult. It's difficult to yeah. And I read Clockwork Orange. Yeah, Anthony Burgers. And I listened also a lot to Anthony Burgers talking about Clockwork Orange. And I think he was on the same, I'm not sure he appreciated Kubrick's adaptation as well,
Mhm.
but Burgers said that it wasn't free violence again. It was to talk about the denunciation of violence or authorities being violent, more violence than the violent people. So again, it's difficult. Kubrick really chose difficult subjects. Really, I really find it's now that I'm thinking about it, it's he tried to make, I mean, movies for everybody. I mean, they were these versions. His movies are really accessible, I think, almost for everyone. I mean, everyone maybe above the age of I would say 13 or 15. But it was like he really wanted to have success, you know. And when you see The Shining, he always chose the stars of the moment. When he did Strange Love, it was Peter Sellers at that time. And when he did Eyes Wide Shut, of course, it was Cruise and Kidman.
Yeah.
And when he made Shining, it was Nicholson. They were the star of the time, and he thought about that because he wanted to have success. He didn't want it to be, in the authorship, even though he is considered to be an author, and that's weird because he almost always adapted from books. So everyone that watch a Stanley Kubrick film say, "Oh, Kubrick's, oh yeah, the script, like, blah 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 blah." But yeah, well, it's not his story, and he's not writing alone. So it's difficult. You mustn't forget that these are adaptation, and you're right. It's very important.
So, in your mind, why do you think his movies endure?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know if it's. I think there are many reasons. Probably because he became a classic, and when you want to make movies, or when you're a movie fan, you have to discover Stanley Kubrick, as you have to discover many others like Wells or Hitchcock or Spielberg or whatever. And I think that today, there are some. You have so many movies everywhere, not only now in the theaters, but you have it on the platform. So you have too many things, and you have to look back, you know, look back what was really great before and what made these films great. And I think that what made Kubrick's film great is also the way he did his films. I mean, it was he had a very small crew. He worked years and years on a project, and he worked. And I think Kubrick is a great example of how can you be the best in the film making process, making a movie. And I think that it's a great lesson. Every film is a lesson, I think, to me, according to me. But if you're talking about the audience, the big audience, the classical audience, not the audience that want to make movies, why do they like to look back and again his films? I think it's because they heard about it, for the ones who haven't seen him. And I think that Kubrick was so ahead of his time. Most of his films haven't aged, and it's amazing. Of course, we are all thinking also about 2001, and even today, when you watch 2001, you say, "My God!" I mean, Chris Nolan hasn't invented anything, or all these guys. I mean, they love him, and of course, they pay tribute to Kubrick. We know that, but he was so much ahead of his time that I think that makes it more easier today to discover again his film. Or, as I said, to me, it's an example also. If you see again his movies, watch again his movies every 10 years, then you get something new. You get a new perception of time because the world changes, and you change, and you age, and as I said, Clockwork Orange is an incredible example today. It's so actual. Uh, so it's a very tricky question,
Yeah,
Michael,
definitely.
because I really don't know. I don't have all the answers, but I think that he's a classic. I mean, and for people who knew him, and for people who really knew who knows how he worked, I think that's the most important thing uh, uh, to keep in mind is how Kubrick worked. I mean, he was a great worker, and if you want to be as perfect as he was, well, you won't be, but anyway, but you need to work. And when you listen to Kubrick, you listen to a great worker, and a great thinker, and he thought about all his films for years, and he read everything, and he had a very little crew. he didn't spend that much money. He shot like a year or 2 years, but
Mhm.
it cost the same that as if he were shooting only 6 months, because his crew and everything was smaller than the basic Hollywood production. So that's amazing. Today you couldn't do that anymore unless you're independent, and you have your own camera and own crew and you produce yourself and everything. But today it's not doable anymore. What he did is amazing. From London, he was controlling Hollywood.
Yeah.
Can you? I mean, it won't happen anymore. It's
No.
amazing. I think that's Kubrick. I mean, it's amazing. It's unique in the film history. I think it's unique, and probably people know that, or they should know that.
Yeah. What does it mean to you that your documentary is played at Tribeca? And do you love New York City?
Oh my God! Yes, I wanted to be there.
Yeah.
Last year, I wanted to be there. Cinema or films or even documentaries. I mean, you need a communion. You need a place to be with other people and to watch a movie and to feel people around you, to watch it on the big screen, and festivals are meant for that. So it's great to have online things, but I miss all that. I miss the emotions. I miss people around. I miss the question of people. I miss meeting with people or professionals. And I love, of course, the type of Tribeca. My God, this is a great. I mean, this is one of the greatest. I was amazed when I learned that it was selected. I was so happy, and New York. I mean, I've been in New York since I'm a very little boy. I was like maybe 8 to 10 years old the first time I've been in. I have family in New York, and I have friends in New York, and I used to come almost every year in New York until the past year, of course.
Mhm.
So I love that city. It is a magical city. I really love that city. It amazes me. I really want to shoot there. Actually, I want to make movies, something over there. I want to do something. I want. It gives me. It gives me physical power. I would say when I'm in New York. So oh yeah, my God. Uh, I will let you know when I come.
Please do.
Yes.
Gregory, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. I always love talking to people about Stanley Kubrick. It's a topic that'll never get old. Do you have a final thought about Stanley Kubrick you would like to end this interview with?
Um, well, I think that he's if if you want to get a good idea of what's a great film or a great filmography, I mean, you should discover Stanley Kubrick. And if you already know him, I think you should watch him again,
Hmm.
because really nothing can beat him. There are too many films today, and I think that people should he should get. He didn't get very great critics at the time of his living. It's awkward, but he didn't. So and today everybody praises him, of course, but I think that's not fair, and I think that it often happens with a lot of artists, and it's difficult to make a film. It's so very difficult to make a movie, and Kubrick really tried his best uh, every time. And I think that he must be discovered by younger generations today, and that's my wish, really, that young people could discover him and show his movies to their kids and etc. and etc. And long live cinema, I would say.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, and take care.